Sawyer, mean, mean pride. Though his mind is not for rent, don't put him down as arrogant. His reserve a quiet defense, writing out the day's events. The river.
Very difficult to start fading Tom Sawyer by Rush, especially before we get to the extended instrumental, which was the reason for playing this particular Rush song today. I was tempted just to pull out the rhythm method, which is one of Neil Peart's drum solos from one of Rush's live albums, but I opted for one of the studio recordings that I think featured Neil Peart on drums pretty well. And it was 5 years ago this day that we lost him. The greatest of all time with a pair of drumsticks. He died from brain cancer 5 years ago today at the age of 67. According to Rolling Stone magazine, Neil Peart was number 4 on the list of all-time greatest drummers. What does Rolling Stone magazine know anyway? That guy's number 1. He's number 1 with a bullet. But nonetheless, we remember Neil Peart today on this 7th of January, 5 years after his passing. A good Tuesday morning to you. It is 6 minutes after 9. Shout out as we get things started to Colin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass. I was telling you yesterday that I risked life and limb by standing on a chair that has wheels as its base. It's a rolling chair. I thought, that's okay. I'm going to stand on this thing in the studio because that seems like a good thing to do. Because I had to reach way up to near the ceiling. I know I'm vertically challenged. So even the lowest of things above my head, I might need assistance reaching. But in this case, I'm telling you, the unit is near the ceiling that I had to try to fiddle with to get my TV monitor working. So there I am, standing on a chair with wheels as its base, and I couldn't get it working. And then Colin Robertson comes in here and standing flat-footed on the ground, reaches up and fixes, like, come on, Colin, defend me here. Help me out. This is ceiling height we're talking about.
It's pretty high up there, but I believe that if you really try to reach it, you could.
It's at the ceiling. It's not just pretty high. It is, look at that. If I held this pen up on top of the next box, that's all the room there is between the next box and the ceiling. This pen.
You know what, Mike? You'll grow one day, and you'll be able to reach it and unplug it yourself.
Just because it's radio, you think you can get away with this. I'm taking a picture of this. I'm going to post it online. It's at the ceiling, and you did it flat-footed, just reaching up with your ape-like arms. Look at you, you orangutan. It's pretty awesome.
That's what I'm known best for, is the orangutan arms.
Well, thank you very much for getting that working. In case you couldn't tell from that 9 a.m. update with Luke Schultz as well, it's winter out there. Now, I wondered if it was just me, because oftentimes, that's the case. It's just me. I'm misremembering something, or I'm thinking that winter is far worse than it actually is because I'm a big suck when it comes to the cold. But I went back and looked because I seemed to recall the winter forecasts that were shared with us coming into the season. Here's what winter's going to be like. And I had it in my head that December was going to be the worst of it. And then once we turn the page to January, it's going to be a different winter. It's going to be an easier winter. There I was with Rosie, the pandemic pup, taking a walk last night, questioning my life choices and my choice of attire. There's no such thing as bad weather. Only inappropriate clothing. I was not dressed well enough for how cold it was. But I went back to take a look. The national overview, according to the Weather Network, back in late November said the focus of winter's fury will be in Western Canada, where near normal and colder than normal temperatures are expected to dominate this upcoming season. Meanwhile, Eastern Canada, that would be us because we're not Western, will also have periods of cold weather, particularly in December. However, periods of milder weather are expected in January and February, resulting in above normal temperatures for the season overall. It ain't above normal out there, Weather Network. I'll be happy when it is, though, believe you me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All right, let's get to that Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. Number 1, the United States Congress has certified President-elect Donald Trump as the winner of the 2024 election in proceedings that unfolded without challenge. Lawmakers met yesterday under heavy security and a snowstorm to meet the date required by law to certify the election. The whole process happened swiftly and without unrest. I think that point made by the Associated Press because we remember what happened when Joe Biden's election was certified. Number 2 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, a strong earthquake shook a high-altitude region of Western China and areas of Nepal today, killing at least 95 people. The quake was measured at a magnitude of 7.1. Number 3, Kitchener Public Library is launching a new lending service in 2 City of Kitchener community centers. The library lockers at Chandler Mowat and Victoria Hills community centers will make it easy for people to pick up, browse, borrow, and return items in their local community center without leaving their neighborhood. Kind of reminds me of the Bookmobile. You remember the Bookmobile back in the day? I loved the Bookmobile. But now, Victoria Hills and Chandler Mowat Community Centers going to have little lockers where you can take advantage of library services. Number 4 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, an 1,100-unit housing project will go ahead in Cambridge after it spent more than a decade under appeal at the Ontario Land Tribunal. The 5-block development at Main and Franklin in Cambridge will include clustered townhomes and an apartment building of no more than 20 stories. The settlement at the Land Tribunal includes an affordable housing contribution of $500 per residential unit. And number 5, former Kitchener Ranger Dwight Foster has died. Foster played for the Rangers from 1973 to 1977. And get this, 50 years ago, he still holds all the team's scoring records. 158 goals, 224 assists, and 382 points. Foster went on to play more than 500 games in the NHL with Boston, Detroit, New Jersey, and the Colorado Rockies. Foster was just 67. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Tuesday morning. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, a concerning trend I've noticed lately from our public institutions, and one that I hope we can find a way to reverse. We'll talk about it coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Just to demonstrate once again that we continue to uphold transparency as one of the 3 pillars of this show. Transparency, accountability, responsibility, and in the interests of transparency, I have posted on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show, a photo of the TV monitor in our studio, which has a next box on top of it, almost touching the ceiling. That's why I needed a chair. Colin Robertson was trying to trick you earlier, remembering that, yes, it's still radio, smoke and mirrors, theater of the mind, but we now have options to share with you these photographs. I needed a chair, okay? I know I'm not the tallest person at the radio station, but only the orangutan next door could reach flat-footed to the ceiling of this studio. Check it out for yourself on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Farwell Show. A story that you may have heard yesterday afternoon. Matt Hutchison was our reporter on the story, and it aired during the afternoon news with Aaron Anderson and Paul McPhee. And there was a part of the story that really caught my attention, and I wanted to highlight here because this is what I would describe as a trend when it comes to public institutions of late. And it's not one that I am at all comfortable with, and I wanted to bring it forward so maybe we can encourage these public institutions to go back to the way it was. And I don't mean to say that as the old guy in the room, back in my day, this is how it worked. But quite frankly, this is how it should have worked. So the story relates to a post on social media last week from Waterloo Region District School Board trustee Mike Ramsey of a letter that is co-signed by fellow school board trustees Cindy Watson and Bill Cody, asking that we have a public meeting so that we, the public, can learn more about what went on with the sudden departure of former Director of Education Jiwan Chanaka. Now, this town hall meeting is actually an idea that was presented by Louisa D'Amato, a columnist with the Waterloo Region Record, in a column she wrote at the end of the year. And I love the idea insofar as, yes, please, let's get some more information here. After all, this is a publicly funded institution, a school board. Heck, the Ministry of Education, if you want to take it up to the provincial level, also publicly funded. It comes out of our tax dollars, right? So yes, I think we should get more information. But when I shared this on my X feed at Farwell_WR, I somewhat sarcastically, because that's how I am on X, even more sarcastic than I am on the radio. But I said, cute idea. Really, though, the thing about public institutions these days is they don't have a whole lot of interest in sharing information with the public. I tried repeatedly to get information about former Director Chanaka's departure. Nothing. And I remember vividly the days as a young reporter at this very radio station when I would, on a Sunday afternoon, pick up the phone and call a school board trustee and do an interview with them. It was just kind of the way it worked. And I think, again, that's the way it should still work. There are things, I'm sure, as a publicly elected official, be it school board, council, provincial parliament, federal parliament, there are probably things that happen that you would rather not talk about. It's not a great story for you, your party, your council, your school board, whatever. But that's what comes with the job. You takes the good and you takes the bad along with it. And if you want to be in public office, from school board to the House of Commons in Ottawa, part of the job is being responsive to and accountable to the public. And I find it increasingly difficult now to get comment anywhere, anytime. Those days of picking up the phone on a Sunday afternoon and calling your local school board trustee to have a conversation about something are gone. They're gone. Now the board says it only speaks through its chair, and the chair has been utterly mum on this particular story. And the story that Matt Hutchison put together for us, and it aired during the afternoon news yesterday, points out that 570 News Radio reached out to the board with a request for comment, and a response has not yet been received. I'm here to tell you, and I want to emphasize this as strongly as I can, that's not how it works. Public institutions are accountable to the public. And far too often lately, the trend that I have recognized as somebody who's been in this business for a little bit is that we either get this, no comment, or we get statements issued, which is not the same as an interview. What we have now, the way things are working, is a group of people who run for a board or a council or a provincial legislature or a federal parliament, and then they go and collectively make decisions on our behalf without explaining to us the rationale for those decisions. We don't have to like the explanation, but damn it, we deserve the explanation. And if you want to seek the public office, you owe us the explanation. And if we don't like the explanation that we hear, we can use our vote to vote you out the next time. But you have to explain to us, as an individually elected trustee, councillor, or member of provincial or federal parliament, you owe that to the people who voted for you. And as an institution, the school board itself, the government itself, you are a publicly funded institution. The lack of transparency, this trend of no comment, no response, I'll give you a statement instead of an interview, it's not right. And this is a trend I certainly hope that we can reverse. Just to put a bow on this, I'll remind you that today is the first Tuesday of the month of January. And on the first Tuesday of every month, for a full hour, you get police leaders in our community, a publicly funded institution, sitting here in studio taking your questions. You don't have to like the questions I ask. You can ask your own questions. You don't have to like the answers that you get, but they sit here with us in studio for an hour every month and answer questions. There's the standard for other public institutions to meet. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
News Radio.
I mentioned a moment or two ago that today being the first Tuesday of the month means Ask the Chief with Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths from 11 until noon today. Also on the first Tuesday of our month, we shine a spotlight on one of the startups in our tech community. We'll learn more today about KA Imaging. That's at 10:30, so about an hour from now. Right now, it's time to get you to the 570 News Center for an update. And then what's next for the federal Liberal Party? We know Justin Trudeau is resigning as party leader and prime minister, but only once a new leader and prime minister has been named. Where's the party going from here? We talk about it next on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
This is where today's topics turn into today's talking points. It's local and it's Democratic radio at its finest. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
Over the holidays, I've also had a chance to reflect and have had long talks with my family about our future. Throughout the course of my career, any success I have personally achieved has been because of their support and with their encouragement. So last night over dinner, I told my kids about the decision that I'm sharing with you today. I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process.
Their only objection is that he is no longer popular enough to win an election and keep them in power. They want to protect their pensions and paycheck by sweeping their hated leader under the rug months before an election to trick you and then do it all over again.
The Mike Farwell Show continues
on 570 News Radio.
The Trudeau resignation, the Poilievre response, and here we are still just under 24 hours later. What's next for the federal Liberal Party? What's next for Canada as President-elect Donald Trump is weeks away from officially assuming office? There's a new administration in Washington, and we have a lot of a lame duck here in Canada right now. Peter Wollstonecroft is a retired professor of political science from the University of Waterloo, joins us to talk about it. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Mike.
What do you make of the goings-on in Ottawa? Have we seen the likes of this before?
No. And what a terrible time. And as you said in your opening comments, we face a big problem with Donald Trump. I mean, what is he going to do? And we're so tied up with the United States economy, and anything they do affects us in big terms. And so we're going to have a prime minister who's on his way out in March the 24th. So what kind of legitimacy does he have as we deal with the U.S. government? So that's the big question. And, so very difficult times.
As for the Liberal Party itself federally, Peter, it's interesting when we look back on 2015, the party had been really beaten up in 2011, and Justin Trudeau was seen as this savior helping the party rise from the ashes. And 9 years later, it appears as though he's leaving it in those same embers.
Yeah, I appreciate the point, and he did pull them out of the ashes, and there were people speculating, writing about the end of the Liberal Party, the death of Liberal Canada, that kind of thing. And so he brings them back into a majority government. But, he never got more than 40% of the vote. So in 2015, that's what he got. In the two subsequent elections, he was about 33%. So he never had a big swath of appeal across the country. His electoral victories were centered Southern Ontario, principally the Toronto GTA, the Montreal area, Atlantic Canada, not much else. Some seats in British Columbia, but in the prairies and rural Ontario, not so much. So he had a very limited mandate, and I think that tends to be forgotten. But he did save the Liberal Party from disappearance. But now they have a big problem because will people move easily from their dislike, and very palpable dislike, for Trudeau to love, adoration from the new leader, whoever it is.
Well, and that new leader, I can't help but think, would likely be best if they were not associated with this particular Liberal government, if they haven't been an MP or a cabinet minister already, because the Conservatives are already out with the slogan, just like Justin.
Yeah, and that's going to matter and weigh heavily. So people not associated with the current government will stand a better chance than those who are insiders. I'm not saying insiders not going to win, because there is a party machine and apparatus, and people know people and so on. But Christy Clark may surprise people from British Columbia, and same with Mark Carney. Now, he's a bit of an insider, but for most Canadians, he's an unknown quantity. Politically, he has a very successful record in major financial decisions and entities and the like. So he may appeal to people who wanted a new leader, but not Pierre Poilievre.
Will this new leader, I suspect it will be the case. I mean, it's going to be so difficult to win an election against Pierre Poilievre, considering the polling. This new leader for the federal Liberals should likely get a second crack at it after likely losing the first time around, right?
Yeah, so that raises a question about Mark Carney. Does he want to sit in the opposition benches and spend his weekends going to Flin Flon? I don't think so. Once you've seen the delights of London, Flin Flon doesn't appeal.
An excellent observation for sure. On the point, Peter, of sort of where this Liberal Party is currently at, and that previously talked about demise of Liberal Canada and never really having a strong mandate, the NDP has also floundered through these last 4 years or so. I don't think Jagmeet Singh is particularly popular. This sets the stage for a possibility, and dare I say, a pretty darn good possibility, that the Bloc Québécois forms the official opposition in the next government.
Well, that's my expectation, given the way the polls are going, and the weakness of the NDP, as you cite, the strength of the Conservatives across the country, but not so much in Quebec. So we can see both the Liberals and the NDP suffering electorally in the next election. That seems like a reasonable prediction given the polls and all of that. And so the Bloc has its strength in Quebec. It didn't have to worry about Western Canada or Ontario or any of that stuff. And it will focus on Quebec issues as they do. And they're the rising tide. And so it's ironic that one of the things coming out of the Trudeau 11 years in office is the reemergence of a separatist party in the province of Quebec.
Yves-François Blanchet has been quick to point out that Canadians need not be afraid of the Bloc as official opposition, but it does have that narrow, if not separatist, as you point out, focus. What does it mean for the rest of Canada if the Bloc is forming the official opposition?
Well, we are a country of regional differences and regional tensions, and it will be a big challenge because the separatists, and I use that term, party, very smart in how they will use the system to advance their interests, which is separation of Quebec from the rest of Canada. And so they will adroitly exploit every opportunity, as they do, to further the cause. And that will be the constant debate that is going on in the House of Commons. And it will depend on the new government, presumably Pierre Poilievre. Now, I mean, it is possible that a Liberal leader emerges who forms government, but statistically, on the face of it, that's not going to happen. So can the new government accommodate Quebec? What can you do to reassure Quebecers that they have a legitimate place in Canada? And that's not an easy pitch, because there is a culture in Quebec which is very much focused upon what happens in Quebec, and not much focused about what happens in the rest of Canada.
Peter, I always appreciate your perspective. Thank you very much for making time for us again today, and a happy belated to you, good sir.
And Happy New Year to you, and I look forward to your many programs down the future and the Ranger games.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Peter Wollstonecroft, how about those Kitchener Rangers? Just real quick. 6 in a row, 13 of 15, and 3 games coming up this weekend. Friday, Sunday at home. On Saturday, we'll travel up to Barrie. But Peter did just pass a birthday on Sunday, so I wanted to make sure I wished him a belated. And as we get back to the matter at hand and consider, I'm going to say this, not just the future of the federal Liberal Party, because I do think, by most accounts, it's in remarkably similar position to, if not an identical place that it was when Justin Trudeau raised it from the ashes in 2015 and won a majority government, right? People were writing the eulogy for the Liberal Party and Liberal Canada after its sound thrashing in 2011. And 4 years later, like a phoenix from the ashes, Justin Trudeau rose the party back to majority standard or status, albeit without an incredibly strong mandate, as Peter just pointed out. But 9 years later, it seems to be the party in the same place that it was in 2011. So history repeating itself a little bit. Maybe that's just the cycle for political parties today. I don't know. But it makes me think this way. Look, we are deeply engaged in these issues, in these stories. We talk about them all the time. And so I wonder if I'm too close to it. But I can't help but ask the question if the left, the political left, has had its moment in leadership, at least for now. We're seeing it around the world. Right-leaning, some even say extreme right leaders taking power in various places. And we appear to be on a similar course here, where a right-of-center government or a right-of-center party will assume the government in Canada. Has the left had its day, at least for the time being? Is there going to have to be a reinvention, or will we just have to have this market correction we talk about so often in politics and have the right for a while and then bring back the left? But has the left, because I'm thinking the NDP, I'm lumping them in here too. It has not been a great 4 years for Jagmeet Singh. Has the left had its moment, at least for now, in politics? Would love to get your thoughts on that. 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio.
People not associated with the current government will stand a better chance than those who are insiders. I'm not saying insiders are not going to win, because there is a party machine and apparatus and people know people and so on. But Christy Clark may surprise people from British Columbia, and same with Mark Carney. Now, he's a bit of an insider, but for most Canadians, he's an unknown quantity. So he may appeal to people who want a new leader, but not Pierre Poilievre.
Peter Wollstonecroft, Professor Emeritus, University of Waterloo, Political Science, joins us, as he so often does, to talk all things political. What is next for the federal Liberals? What is next for Canada? There was some great discussion during All News Mornings today with Christine Clark and Luke Schultz about the impact of those threatened U.S. tariffs and how we go about navigating that as a country without an effective leader. How do we have any legitimacy on the world stage for the next 2.5 to 3 months? Frankly, it doesn't appear as though we do. The timing of this could not possibly be worse. But here we are. The Prime Minister making his announcement yesterday. Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Conservatives, with his healthy lead in the polls, says this changes nothing. And the Conservative Party already out with its slogan, "Just like Justin," which suggests to me that if you are a current MP or a member of the federal cabinet and you're thinking of throwing your hat into the leadership ring, I'm looking at you, Chrystia Freeland, I'm looking at you, Dominic LeBlanc, and I'm sure they know this. They don't need to take advice from me, but you are carrying the baggage of these last 9 years into that, not just leadership race with you, but what comes after, if indeed you are anointed the next Liberal Party leader. And I thought that Peter made a really interesting point about Mark Carney. Maybe enough of an outsider, maybe, I don't know, because he's been closely tied to Justin Trudeau for these last many years, but maybe enough of an outsider to pull it off. But how would he feel in opposition for the next while in federal parliament? Because that's almost certainly where the next Liberal leader will end up. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. The name Jody Wilson-Raybould keeps coming across my radar, and I can't help but wonder, wouldn't that be interesting? Right? The first of the big dominoes to fall in the federal government, a woman that many say was mistreated by the feminist prime minister and ousted in the midst of the SNC Lavalin affair. Wonder if she would be outside enough to return to federal politics and perhaps make a run for the Liberal leadership. I couldn't help but look back to our last show before the Christmas break when we shared some predictions for the year ahead. My first one was that we'll have an early provincial election, likely by March. I feel even better about that now because with Parliament prorogued until March the 24th, it would behoove Doug Ford to get his election done and over with before the Liberal leadership race begins. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. My second prediction was that more than one municipal councillor will take a leave to run in the provincial election. Colleen James, a regional councillor who represents Kitchener, has already made that announcement. And if one more does, and I think they will, that'll be a correct prediction as well. And my third prediction was Justin Trudeau will resign as Liberal leader. Look, I don't think I was really stretching it with the predictions here, but so far my top three are looking pretty darn good. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. There seems to be a strong sentiment that we need to get back to the basics in our schools, right? We need the reading, we need the writing, we need the arithmetic. But we need more than just those basics, don't we? That's the argument we'll put forward right after this update from the 570 News Center. Stay with us. Why schools need to teach more than just the basics, coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570. How many times have you heard it from our education minister here in the province of Ontario? We have to get back to basics in Ontario schools. Those foundational skills of reading, writing, arithmetic must be at the core of what we're doing. But is that all we should be focused on in our schools? Louis Volante is a distinguished professor in the Faculty of Education at Brock University and joins us to talk more about it. Louis, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks very much for making the time to talk about something that I know is on the minds of many. And it's my sense, in fairness, sitting here, but that there is an interest on the part of the public generally that we see a return to this back to basics approach in our schools, if indeed we ever got away from it. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I would say that. And I mean, in particular, because we're coming out of the pandemic and, we're finding through research that students have experienced significant learning losses in those traditional content domains like reading, math, and science. So, obviously getting kids caught up and catching up based on what they've missed through that 2 years in which, they were in various types of learning situations, whether it's online or hybrid, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I think that's a fair assumption.
So if that is something that the public generally feels, that we need to get back to basics, you argue that it can't be the sole focus. What else do we need to be cognizant of here when it comes to how we are educating kids in our schools?
Yeah, so I've used the triartic framework, which just basically means I'm looking at three things. So number one is the cognitive aspect, which relates to math, reading, math, science, the traditional academic outcomes that we all want our students to be successful at. But in addition to that, I've added mental health issues as well as physical health. And I mean, I think it's really important for the listeners to understand that it's possible to have all three, to do well in all three. And I think the other point that I want to emphasize is that when students have strong non-cognitive skills, which I talk about, so things like social emotional learning, emotional intelligence, growth mindset, a belief that you will do well if you try hard, as opposed to, I'm born with innate skills, like I'm a math person, so I'll do well in math, or I'm not a math person. That's the opposite of growth mindset. That's a fixed mindset. So what my research is showing quite clearly cross-nationally is when students can exhibit all three of these domains, they're ultimately better off in school, but also better off in life in general.
So how do we ensure that these three areas are incorporated into our curriculum, into our school days?
Yeah, I mean, there's been policies on the books. Let's just take physical health as an example. There's been policies on the books for years, like the DPA policy, daily physical activity. But I don't think there's a person out there, if you talk to teachers or administrators or people who do research in this area, that will tell you it's followed. It's not followed. So there's a lot of kids that aren't even getting their recommended amount of daily physical activity, and you have schools in different parts of the world where they actually start their day with a robust sort of exercise. You think of countries like Japan as an example, where they're required to do this, So In some cases, we actually have the policies, but they're used sporadically. They're not enforced, or enforced isn't necessarily the best word, but we're not adhering to what we know we should be doing. And then in other cases, we really just need to invest more in terms of how we're equipping our educators and support staff to deal with students around some of these newer issues that they're not new, but some of these issues that have really come to the fore after the pandemic in terms of mental health issues.
Why are those so-called softer skills important, Louis? Like that growth mindset, like that emotional intelligence, for example?
Because if you look at any actual outcome data, when you look at students as they progress through the system and they move on to, say, post-secondary, or they move on to the world of work, those skills are significant predictors of success, whether it be moving on to another level of education or moving on to be successful in the workforce. I mean, these are basic skills. It's just we've been conditioned for well over 100 years to think of the basics as just the 3 R's, the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic. And, I would add science as well to that, the whole STEM field. And by the way, I mean, I have kids that focus on those areas. Like I have one child who's focused on STEM. So it's not that I'm saying that they're not important. Of course they're important. What I'm saying is that by attending to these other domains, they will ultimately be more successful.
I found it interesting when you were talking about the daily physical activity requirement and how few, if any, schools are meeting that. And it leads me to wonder, of course, why. We hear often of underfunding, understaffing, et cetera. But can we pinpoint why DPA is not being achieved?
Yeah, I mean, it's considered an afterthought, and obviously when there's talk to teachers or administrators in elementary schools, if there's going to be, for instance, an assembly, as an example, and they're going to miss their math or their English, they'll make that math and English lesson up. But if they're going to miss physical education, it's fine. It's not as important. So we do have this hierarchy of subjects, right, where we put the maths and the languages at the top, and we go down, and at the very, very bottom, you have the arts. And that's pretty much seen across most Western education systems. What I'm trying to argue is that if we don't attend to these non-cognitive skills, we're essentially going to be graduating students and setting them up to not be as resilient and have the grit in order to get through a program in post-secondary and also be successful in life, like healthy eating habits, healthy daily activity. I just got back from the gym. I'm lucky enough that I have the flexibility to do that, but the point is that we need to start thinking about that. And, I don't have to give you the statistics. You probably have heard them 1,000 times, but North Americans in general, in particular, are not the most healthy people out there. That's for sure.
There is no question about that. You argue the case very well, Louis, and it's a great reminder to us as we turn the page on a calendar and consider our school days ahead. Thanks very much for making time for the show this morning.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Louis Vellante is a distinguished professor in the Faculty of Education at Brock University. Yes, the basics, the 3 R's, are important. But surely there are other things we can be, and dare I say, to take Louis' argument, should be focused on when it comes to our academic pursuits. Let's make sure. I mean, we do have the daily physical activity requirement in our curriculum in Ontario. Doesn't mean it's being delivered. And what about these softer skills, this growth mindset, this emotional intelligence? If we are not helping our students understand that, learn more about it, are we creating the next resilient workforce, or are we missing out? The cognitive, the non-cognitive, and hey, let's not forget the importance of that daily physical activity. I always think about these young kids in our schools today as sponges, And just think of the opportunity that we have to implement all of these best practices into them today so that they carry them forward into the future. Are we hitting the mark or missing the mark? And yes, I use the word mark intentionally when it comes to our schools. Are we hitting it or missing it? The mark in school today. Let me know your thoughts on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio.
Skills are significant predictors of success, whether it be moving on to another level of education or moving on to be successful in the workforce. I mean, these are basic skills. It's just we've been conditioned for well over 100 years to think of the basics as just the 3 R's, the reading, the writing, and the arithmetic. And, I would add science as well to that, the whole STEM field. By attending to these other domains, it will ultimately be more successful.
If I can add to STEM and make it STEAM, so along with science, technology, engineering, math, the STEM fields, we add the A in there for arts, which has been promoted here in the region. And I like that it is, my bias notwithstanding. But as an arts graduate and somebody who still works in a creative field, i.e. the arts, clearly my bias makes me a big believer in it. And I still get teased at home, and I get it. However, I am a firm believer in the importance of the arts as part of our overall education and the non-cognitive skills that the arts help us to develop. But one of the other things that came out of that conversation with Louis Volante this morning that really got me thinking was the DPA, the acronym for Daily Physical Activity, which is embedded in our curriculum here in Ontario, but as Louis points out, is rarely followed through upon. And I struggle with it. I do. If you're of a certain vintage, you, like me, may remember, I was going to call it participation, but that's the Hal Johnson and Joanne McLeod thing online, right? Or that was on TV, right? But either way, we had that thing we had to do. Do you remember the thing? That thing we had to do in gym class where we had to do all these different exercises. It was almost like a little decathlon. You had to do a wall sit to see how long you could do that. You had to hang from the chin-up bar. I don't recall. Maybe we did have to do chin-ups too. And then you had to hang from it for as long as you can. You had to jog around the block of the school. There were a bunch of different things that we had to do, and we would get marked on all of them. And it wasn't like it was, in any way strict. But I think the length of time it took you to do that, I don't know how long it was going around the block, a kilometer or two, I have no idea. But, if you're within this window of time, you get the top score. If you're in this window of time, you get the midpoint score, etc. How long you're holding on to that pull-up bar, it's all measured in some way to determine your physical health and well-being. And look, I get it. The times have changed, and we don't even look at the BMI index as being all that important anymore, right? Body mass index. It's not the best measurement of our overall health. But the underlying idea here that Louis points to is the importance of daily activity, right? In case you haven't been keeping up with the latest research, it says 150 minutes a week for the average adult. That's 30 minutes a day, Monday through Friday, of physical activity. Now, raise your hand if you're getting that much, because if you are, good for you. You may recall my obsession with steps because, of course, all of our phones or our watches have these step counters on them these days. And they talk about 10,000 steps being the minimum we should be achieving every day. And of course, 10,000 has suddenly become 15,000. But I still track them as best I can. And I really do try. But those of you who are able to get 10,000 steps in a day, bless your ding-dang heart, because it takes me about an hour and a half to walk that many steps. And frankly, I don't usually have, on a general work day, that much time to get in that many steps. Could I squeeze in 30 minutes of mild cardiovascular exercise, probably easier. I really do try my very best at this. And then it comes to the healthy eating habits as well that can be implemented into our curriculum, that can be used for students today so that they have those healthier habits moving forward. How many times have we talked on this show with medical experts who say, and this is why I always come back to our healthcare system, and I call it a sick care system. Bless our healthcare system's heart and the people who work within it. But if we could go back to that ounce of prevention being worth a pound of cure, and we start really reinforcing these behaviors, daily physical activity, healthy eating habits, etc., at a young age, I think it pays huge dividends down the road, because it's just too easy and too convenient to get the things that we ought not be getting, and to sit and stare at a screen instead of, 90 minutes of walking is a long time. On a given day when you got to put in 8 hours of work and you have to adult in various other parts of your life. But regardless, 150 minutes of mild cardiovascular activity every week, so 30 minutes a day on weekdays. You can be a slob on weekends if you want. Those healthy eating habits, etc. And I remember, sometimes I still see, because I live near the elementary school that I actually used to attend, and I still see the kids sometimes. They're not all running. A lot of them have given up the ghost and started walking, but at least the teacher is getting them out there and taking them around the block when the weather permits. And I'm thinking, I remember doing that when I was a kid. It was part of our gym class. It was part of whatever that physical activity thing. It was a national program that we had to mark the boxes on. You'd compete with your friends. My wall sit was longer than your wall sit. I don't know that it's happening as much as it used to, even though it remains a part of our curriculum. Louis Vellante of Brock University argues that schools do need to teach more than just the basics of the 3 R's. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Thanks to my buddy Sean for the reminder. The Canada Fitness Test. That's what that sucker was. Go sit on a wall. Let's go to the phones before the 10:30 update. Katie is with us. Good morning, Katie.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing all right, thanks. I'm just in the car with my kids, so I'm going to keep it quick because I don't know how long they'll be quiet for. But I was listening to your conversation with the professor about daily physical activities in the classroom. And I have to say, primary is really easy to incorporate, but as you get older, it's a lot harder. And not just because of the curriculum demands, but if you look at the size of the classrooms and then the size of the classes and how much space desks and kids take up, there's not a lot of space to do daily physical activities inside, and you're not always able to go outside. I've been at schools where they've restricted the number of classes that go outside at a time. And even when you take the kids outside, they don't often respond to being outside, and they stand around on phones or just chatting.
Great point, Katie. Thanks so much for making the call and dealing with the kids in the car at the same time. And you know what it makes me think of? Because as an adult, I will admit to failing miserably. I know I talked earlier about that 150 minutes of physical activity every week, et cetera, the healthy eating habits, all of these different things. We have the research available to us. We know intuitively what we're supposed to do. Do we prioritize it? And in our schools, when they're crowded and there is so much other curriculum to deliver, what gets a lower priority? Oh, daily physical activity. And maybe we're paying for that when you look at the overall health of North Americans. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The first Tuesday of the month means many things here on the program. One of those things is Ask the Chief, our monthly segment on the first Tuesday of every month between 11 and noon, when our policing leaders, Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, join us in studio. You can have your policing questions answered. Also, on the first Tuesday of every month, we like to shine a brighter light on one of the tech startups in our community, something we call the Tuesday Tech Spotlight. And today we shine that light on KA Imaging. Amal Karnik is the president, CEO, and co-founder of KA Imaging and joins us for a conversation. Amal, good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks
for having me.
Thank you very much for making the time. What does KA Imaging do? What problem are you trying to solve?
Absolutely. Thanks for the question. So KA Imaging, we've actually spun out of the University of Waterloo, and we've created spectral X-ray. And you may ask, why do you need spectral X-ray? Well, X-ray hasn't changed in 120 years. And what we've done is create the capability of doing, in a way, color X-ray or separating and understanding the materials. X-ray, as you probably know, is really just a shadow. And we're trying to give more information to that shadow and allow you to get better information and see better.
What was it that led you into the med tech field, Amal?
So my med tech journey started 25 years ago or more, actually. I did graduate from Waterloo and I did my master's at McGill, but I always wanted to do healthcare-related jobs. And, biomedical was sort of the thing I did initially, and went to GE Healthcare and sort of stayed in the medical imaging world since.
So what is it about the imaging from your X-ray that makes it so much different or better than the traditional X-ray that we've all come to know?
Absolutely. Let me give you a simple use case as well. We did some work here at Grand River Hospital. And at Grand River Hospital, in an intensive care unit, we actually showed we saved up to 37% of the required CTs. So we did bedside imaging and showed you didn't have to move a patient in the hospital. And the reason we can do that is our imaging, if you look at the chest wall, you've got the ribs surrounding the lungs. What we do is we can actually separate and view each independently. So now we can look at the lung field without the ribs overlying it. And that's where we've seen pneumonias, pneumothorax, lesions better. In the bone image, we can see lines and tubes really well. We can see calcification in coronary arteries. But what was really beneficial from that intensive care trial is that we showed that when you don't move a patient, you reduce the risk for the patient. Every time you move a patient in the hospital, it increases risk. So our imaging gives you that better information, more information, and that capability to visualize the lung field without anything overlapping it, or even just look at the ribs or the bone field.
It's absolutely fascinating. And you mentioned earlier that this has KA Imaging spun out of the University of Waterloo, you yourself a grad of Waterloo. What is it about the tech ecosystem here that makes it the place that you wanted to launch KA Imaging?
Part of it is my business partner's professor at the University of Waterloo as well. So Professor Kareem is a professor there, and he is, for the reason we want to be close to the university. We have the capability of working with the university. But the ecosystem here, when it comes to the University of Waterloo and, engaging in tech and working hard, deep tech, we've built a new X-ray sensor, which is more X-ray technology and sensor technology. And, the University of Waterloo is fantastic to work with. They're great in terms of university, but then also supporting spin-outs and resources and capabilities. As you probably know, Waterloo has a unique IP policy in terms of its professor-owned IP, but also the ecosystem here in Waterloo to allow us to grow has been fantastic.
What would you say was your biggest challenge as you entered the market?
Just awareness. Who is KA Imaging? A small startup from Waterloo. When you're competing with the big companies like GE, Philips, Siemens, that's one of our big challenges, getting more awareness. That's what I find right now. People, when they start to get to know us, to understand what our technology works and what it can do, really starts opening the doors. But that first initial part to get to know us and the marketing and, competing and how do you get showing what we do and how we do it better, that's part of our biggest challenges right now.
How does a hub like Communitech support you as a founder, Amal?
So Communitech's been very helpful. I've also, just to disclose, I've been an executive in residence at Communitech as well. And it's been very helpful. They even helped when we're doing some of the trials at Grand River Hospital, connecting to the Can Health Network, if you're familiar with that. So Can Health is a platform across Canada that's trying to get, communities or Canadian technology into the hospitals as well. So they had support initially to some of those introductions. So we've been working with Communitech for many years, from the early days of KA Imaging.
It is a fascinating story, as I find so many of these startup stories to be. Amal, thanks very much for making time for the show and sharing the KA Imaging story with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate having me here today.
Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Amal Karnick is the president, CEO, and co-founder of KA Imaging. And Amal himself spent 20 years in the medical imaging space to become a leader of multidisciplinary teams and sales, engineering, operations. And now KA Imaging is developing these unique detectors and imaging products that leverage multi-energy X-ray technologies for medical, industrial, veterinary, and scientific imaging customers. Lower radiation exposure for patients and 3 types of imaging from just one X-ray. KA Imaging getting a little more of the light shone upon it in our Tuesday Tech Spotlight this month here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Along with hosting this show and having conversations with you on a daily basis, I also have the privilege of providing a weekly column to the Waterloo Region Record. I've always enjoyed newspapers. I read them every day. I love the fact that I get to write about 500 words for our local paper, which I used to deliver door to door when it was an afternoon newspaper. Oh, I'm showing my age, but I digress on all of that. Just wanted to remind you, because I'm shameless that way, that I do get the opportunity. But I bring this up because the column that I just wrote last week was one that had been sitting with me for quite a while, because I was really intrigued by the way this particular court case played out. So the story centered around a 26-year-old man who admitted to driving drunk through the streets of uptown Waterloo during the annual jazz festival, no less. So even more people. I mean, uptown Waterloo is busy enough in and of itself, but you add the jazz festival to it, and you've got more people on the streets who are now in grave danger because this jackwagon, and I'm sorry, sir, but I think you know that's what you are or were in this particular case, driving drunk on those same streets full of people. And not only did this man admit to driving drunk, but he also agreed with the prosecution in the case that it was, quote, pure chance that he did not injure anyone on that particular night. So what struck me is that this man represented himself in court and was, in my opinion, accountable for his actions. Now, I have little to no tolerance whatsoever for impaired driving. We've talked about it on the show before. This is something that chafes my chaps like few other things. You make a conscious decision before you are heading out for a night of enjoyment, how you are going to get yourself home from that night, right? I've gone so far as to argue for much stiffer charges when it comes to drinking and driving, because you can make the case that it was premeditated, right? You know you're going out to have a good time. You know that good time will include some drinks, and you don't plan for another way home. That's on you. So this guy, before a judge here in the region, admitting that it was sheer luck that nobody got hurt, admitted that, yep, it was him behind the wheel. He drove drunk along the streets of Uptown Waterloo during the annual jazz festival. And because of that, because he wanted to be accountable, he was willing to accept the maximum punishment for his first-time offense. And that punishment is a $4,000 fine and a 3-year driving ban. I should remind you in this, nobody was hurt. Again, it was sheer luck that it worked out that way. But nonetheless, yes, Your Honor, I'm guilty. Yes, Your Honor, I agree with the prosecution here that it was sheer luck that nobody got hurt. And I will accept the $4,000 fine and the 3-year driving ban, which is the maximum that you can get for a first-time offense. What ended up happening, though, is because he was representing himself, and the judge was pointing out, listen, you might not be benefiting from the experience and the understanding of the law that a defense lawyer might bring you. So instead of the $4,000 fine and the 3-year driving ban, I'm going to instead apply a $3,000 fine and a 15-month driving ban, which is less than half of 3 years. 3 years is 36 months. So instead of paying the maximum and being banned from driving for the maximum, the judge cuts it down for him, even though he wanted to be accountable and accepted the punishment for his crime. I found that very curious, because I really do, as much as I have little to no tolerance for drinking and driving, somebody that stands before the court and says, I did it, I want to be accountable for it, I accept what the maximum punishment is for the crime I committed, and still, even without the benefit of a defense lawyer, the judge lessens the sentence. Compare that or contrast that with something that I read in this morning's Waterloo Region Record, written by a professor who spent considerable time overseas in Hong Kong and says, you know, we ought to, in this country, follow Japan's lead on drunk driving. In Japan, even a first offense could mean jail time and losing your job. First-time offenders for drinking and driving in Japan are subject to prison time up to 3 years and hefty fines. Driver's licenses are suspended for 3 months. There's also a $3,000 fine for refusing a breath test, and even passengers and bar owners associated with the offender can face penalties. Also, the legal limit for alcohol content in one's blood in Japan is 0.025, less than 1/3 of Ontario's threshold of 0.08. 0.025 will get you about 1 glass of beer or wine before you face much stiffer criminal charges in Japan when it comes to drunk driving. Maybe not such a bad idea following Japan's lead on that. And certainly, when somebody stands before you in court and says, I did it, I'm guilty, and I accept the maximum extent of the law's punishment, well, then mete out that punishment, in my humble opinion. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio. Russell sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com following the story of the 26-year-old man who admitted to driving drunk through the streets of Uptown Waterloo during the jazz festival, no less, and that it was pure luck that nobody got hurt by his actions. He was willing to accept the full extent, the maximum punishment under the law, but instead was issued a lighter sentence, a smaller fine and a lesser driving ban. And Russell's email to mike@570news.com says that means no one will ever see the maximum. And that occurred to me too, Russell, because precedent and all of that. Patty is on the phone with us this morning. Good morning, Patty.
Good morning, Mike. And I wish I had every morning to listen to you, and I don't. But anyway.
Patty, what's the matter with you? You're not listening every morning? Come on now.
I work still long-term care in Elmira. But
Bless
anyway,
your heart. Bless your heart.
But also, every subject I have something, and don't get me started on drunk drivers, but because my brother was T-boned by one last year, high on, methamphetamines as well as being drunk. And that was the second time because he just got out of the state pen for doing what he was doing. But, I mean, it's just these judges said, let's give you a little bit lesser sentence because you didn't have to get a lawyer and you did it yourself. So I don't know. I was very, very involved with Mad Canada years and years and years ago because I know too many families that have lost, family members to drunk drivers, and it makes me sick. Anyway, and now I have to get the record again because I didn't realize you wrote a column. Is that every day you do one?
It's every week, once a week. Shows up on Saturdays.
Oh, okay, because I used to always get Friday, Saturday, so now I got to start it up again.
You should do that.
I should, because I can't read it online, or I could, but I'm just too old to do that.
You and me both, Patty.
All right, appreciate that. Have a great day. Stay healthy.
You too. Bye-bye. I love Patty's enthusiasm for all of her local content. She wishes she could listen to every minute of this show every day because she's always got something to say. Don't we all? And now she's going to renew her subscription to the Waterloo Region Record. Support local journalism. Tune into your 6 o'clock news, read your daily paper, and by all means, question your life choices if you're not listening to this show. Come on with your coming on here. All right, it's the first Tuesday of the month, and that means the next hour is your opportunity to have your policing questions answered. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up the Traffic Services Unit, in studio with us for Ask the Chief coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. And with that, we embark on a brand new year, but we continue along the tradition. First Tuesday of every month, 11 until noon, Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up the Traffic Services Unit, join us in studio for Ask the Chief. Mark, Happy New Year. Good morning.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Scott, good morning and Happy New Year to you as well.
Happy 2025 to you.
Indeed it is. Thank you for the reminder. Everything I write down or type has to be a 25 on the end of it now. Mark, I'll start with you because we just got the information this morning about 2 men arrested after 20 high-end vehicles that had been stolen were recovered. Can you shed some light on this investigation and what led to these arrests?
Sure. So this was an investigation led by our break, enter, and vehicle theft team. It's a specialized unit that focuses on these types of occurrences. So we had a rash of vehicles stolen from Kitchener driveways in the past month, and that led us to an investigation into the Hamilton area, and we uncovered a variety of vehicles not only linked to our region, but also Hamilton and the Greater Toronto Area Police Services as well. So this is one, kudos to our team for following that through, but one of several investigations that we've seen recently linked to organized crime. So the reason that we held the media availability today was to really look at the stats. So over the past 5 years, we've seen a 25% increase in our total motor vehicle thefts over that time. This year, we've seen well over 1,200, I think, once we total all of our vehicle thefts stolen. The great trend we've seen, though, is in the reprogramming. So last year we had 76 reprogramming thefts, and this year it's been 142. So that's an 87% increase in reprogramming thefts. We've also seen a doubling in carjackings. So this is the concerning trend that we're seeing, and we just want to highlight that it's not only a local issue. We know this is a provincial, national, and international organized crime issue.
Because of that, how is it changing policing and your approach to keeping communities safe and people's property protected?
Exactly right. So, I mean, we are doing everything we can to link our efforts with police services across Ontario and really across the country. And you've seen the provincial government looking to invest differently in this space. So they have a Ministry of Auto Theft and Bail Reform. They're looking at port security, so points of entry and exit, rail, boat, and all those availabilities that are taking these vehicles overseas, where the value of them is really doubled. So a vehicle stolen from a Waterloo region driveway or garage has a doubling of the value overseas. So that's the lucrative part of the organized crime aspect of this. And so locally, we're making concerted crime suppression efforts, focusing on prolific offenders, prolific offenses, and it's amongst our top priorities. And so this is not just the inconvenience and the cost and the disruption to people's lives. When you start to get into the carjackings, the robberies of vehicles from people, that's where lives are on the line. And so I can tell you that it's amongst our top priority, and we're very focused on disrupting and looking to reverse this tide.
And when it comes to a reprogramming theft, as you've described, Mark, is that somebody that has essentially copied your fob that they can then use? They have a duplicate fob to take your vehicle? Exactly right. So that's the change we've seen. I remember when Scott and I started, a couple decades ago, you could use a screwdriver to, get into some vehicles. And that was the trend. And now we're looking at the emerging of technology into the hands of organized crime groups and local crime groups. And they're able to duplicate that technology and put it within seconds into their own hands. So the keyless entry. And so this comes down to another conversation about the manufacturers. So Equite Canada works on behalf of all the insurance companies across Canada. And they've identified the top most frequently stolen vehicles, for the public to be aware of. But also there should be conversations with manufacturers, because there are some made in Canada issues that other countries are not facing. And that needs to be part of this discussion to say, we'll continue to do our efforts from law enforcement and crime response and so on, but this needs to be an all-of-industry discussion. All right. Scott, speaking of a couple decades ago, I'll go with a couple decades that I was in high school and I slid my dad's car on a snowy road. I was not driving fast, I promise, but into the telephone pole that goes, I mess up the front quarter panel. And all that had to happen was a sticker gets put on there and I move on with my life and I get it fixed later on. But the threshold for collision reporting has changed now that we're into 2025. Can you explain these changes to us?
That's right, Mike. So as of January 1st, the threshold for reporting a property damage only collision, so yours might not have been a property damage only, but something involving two vehicles with damage, with no injuries, no damage to public property, the threshold's gone up from $2,000 to $5,000. So that's the total cost of the damage to both vehicles or to multiple vehicles if it's in a multiple vehicle collision. So it has gone up. I think it's a reflection of the fact that costs in repairs have gone up to be more realistic as to the reporting threshold, because very few collisions now that we see we're ever making it under the $2,000 threshold, and now we're going to get to $5,000. And most of the collisions will still need to be reported, but it's just it's a better reflection of our reality today. I reported that collision. I had to go to the coffee shop to get to a payphone because cell phones didn't exist yet. And the officer, you left the scene? I'm like, well, I didn't know what to do. I was a dumb kid. So for anybody that's involved in a collision now, Scott, what's the protocol? What should we know? What should we do? So from the very first steps, obviously when you are involved in a collision, if it's with two vehicles, we want to make sure that you're making sure that all the parties involved, if they need assistance, that are calling 911, that they're doing things. But if you've identified it as very minor, there's only some scratches or dents or bumps on your vehicles, the thing that's required for everybody, no matter if it's $5 or $5,000, is to exchange information. So at the side of the road, off the road, if it's safe to move the vehicles, you're going to exchange your information, your name, address, your vehicle, like license plate and insurance information with the other driver. If it looks visually to you like this is going to be something that's over $5,000 of combined damage, then your obligation is to report to our police reporting centers. We have one in Waterloo at our North Division and one down at our headquarters complex in Cambridge. If you're not sure about it, or it's something that you are imagining that you want to settle separately with the other driver, you can go and get a quote from a body shop or from a preferred location that your insurance company recommends. And if the quote comes back to be over, what you believe to be $5,000 for a combined damage, then you still have to come in and report to us at our reporting centers. Those are the steps that, like, people sometimes are worried, like, is it too little to come in or too much, or what should I do? We always recommend that you're welcome to come in and report it. Like, a report will never come back to haunt you. It'll always be something that kind of you have to support any kind of insurance claim or anything else that's happened with your vehicle. But if you are feeling that it's under the $5,000 limit and want to try to settle that between the parties, the exchange of information is required, but then you can work that out. And if it does come to the point where that value increases, then you can obviously come in and report to us.
All right. Excellent reminders. Scott Griffiths is a staff sergeant who heads the Traffic Services Unit with Waterloo Regional Police. Mark Crowell is our Chief of Police. They are here on the first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon to answer your questions and mine. I wanted to make sure we did some, business here for the radio station. Our news team needs these things answered, and we'll start taking your calls right after this. Paul and Sean already on the line, and a phone line is open to you on Ask the Chief here this morning. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. First Tuesday of every month, between 11 and noon, Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, who heads up Traffic Services, joins us in studio for Ask the Chief. You can have your policing questions answered, and clearly you have many because the phone lines are busy. We'll get right to it. Paul, you start us off. Get right to your question, please, and thank you. Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. This whole thing about not having to report accidents until they hit the $5,000 range. A couple of years ago, I was driving up a northern highway, very snowy, right across on the road, black ice. I slid off the road and then down into the ditch. Total damages to the vehicle, even though it was on its side in a ditch, ended up a couple of $100. But the towing company would not pull me out until the police responded and filed a report. So how do we deal with that? And the other point is the majority of people looking at a vehicle wouldn't know if there was $5 damage or $5,000 damage. What may look like just something minor, an insurance company could turn around and say, we're going to write off the vehicle at that amount.
All right, Paul. So how do we deal with a towing company that may not tow you until you get the police report?
Well, Paul, I can't speak to what the policy is up in the northern area that you were dealing with, and they may have some direction from the OPP in that area as to how they handle those. But I can tell you that here, if you call into our police communications center to speak with a call taker and identify yourself as being involved in a collision that doesn't involve injuries or property damage to any public property on the roadway, they're going to give you some advice about, and they're going to direct you, if necessary, to call a towing company if your vehicle requires that. And that's done through our communications center. The tow company would respond if you request one through us, and then they would bring you to the police reporting center here. There will be tow truck drivers sometimes who will come and solicit you on the side of the road if they see a collision or they get a whiff of one, through other means. But we always, depending on the type of collision, if it involves injuries or it involves damage to property or such, we will direct people to stay at the scene, and we will direct that nothing be moved until we attend and address that. So depending on the circumstances, that's how we would handle it here. As for people not understanding, that's absolutely a great point. Again, what I'll reiterate with you is that if there's a collision you're involved with, there's property damage, you've exchanged information, and you're a little bit unsure about whether the damage is above or below that threshold, there is no harm in coming to our police reporting center and reporting that collision and getting a collision report, and then going to your insurance company and having that damage fixed. If you're more confident in the value of it and you want to go and get a quote first, or you want to see how much it is, certainly if it's below that what you believe to be that threshold, you can do so. And if it comes back higher, you have to come back in and report it.
All right. Paul, thanks for the question. Great explanation there. Sean, you are next. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Very good.
Thanks. One of the comments I had about this increased threshold was our government claims that Ontario has the safest roads in North America, whatever. But it's been my observation that I've seen the speeding, the bad lane changes. I've almost been hit on crosswalks. It seems to me that poor driving has become normalized. And with the increased thresholds, we are further divorcing people from interactions from the police. And I think it's insulating them from having that nice chat with a constable about their driving habits. I think some of these people need a chat with a constable about their driving habits, quite frankly.
All right, Sean. Appreciate that sentiment. And
sure, thanks, Sean. And not going to dispute anything you're saying. I mean, our interactions are important where we can provide education, insight, and context to people. And I can tell you, for as long as Scott and I have been police officers, traffic is the number one community concern. And it's a topic on this show very often, the number of traffic issues, whether it's impaired driving that was spoken about before we started, or the number of collisions or dangerous driving behaviors. So we know this is how people intersect every day. And as this community grows with active transportation of many sorts and also the ION and so on, the traffic will continue to be an integral part of our life. So we roll with the legislation as it's adapted and as it evolves over time. But your points are well taken in terms of the requirements for us all to take due care for how we, communicate on the roadway, how we carry ourselves, and point well taken.
And I think here, this reminds me of, I believe you call it the Fatal Four, the speeding, aggressive driving, impaired, and seatbelts. Is
Correct.
that right? Yeah. And this is something that is constantly being monitored with every, I don't want to call them speed traps. So every traffic enforcement that you're doing and the ride program that just wrapped up for the holidays.
Absolutely. So we're like every one of our proactive initiatives is trying to address community-based complaints and community-based concerns. And we are finding that when it comes to traffic complaints, Sean's exactly right. We have people who are driving distracted, people who are going too fast, people who are not obeying signals or intersections or any sort of traffic control that we have. So our goal when we go out and do our proactive enforcement is to address those issues in the places that people need them to be at. So we're definitely, we have those efforts year round. Our festive ride program just wrapped up January 1st. It's part of our impaired driving strategy to both be visible and also to interdict impaired driving throughout the region. So,
all right, Sean, thanks for raising the point. Let's go next to Doug. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning. Thank you for my call.
Well, Doug, we can barely hear you.
Is that better?
A wee bit.
That's it?
Look at you, Doug. That's a beautiful thing.
Okay, I found my volume button. Thanks for the patience. I bought 3 vehicles from a guy. He allowed me to keep them on his property. The city comes along and says everything of his and mine needs to be moved to build a trench. So the owner of the property arranged for a towing company to tow them 4 blocks away and keep them and then bring them back when they were finished. They didn't come back. And finally says he wants another $300 to bring them back. He has no contract that I was signed. It's against the verbal agreement, and I have the owner of the property to back that up. Then he claims, it's storage. Well, it was a storage fee because you didn't fill your part of the bargain and bring them back. So he needs to be charged with extortion. I told this to a police officer, that's a civil matter. Well, every crime between 2 people is a civil matter. This guy needs to be charged with extortion and in holding the possession of my stolen vehicle.
All right, Doug, I got your phone scratching up pretty big on us there, but I'll bring this over to Mark for thoughts because I'm sure you can address the civil matter versus what Doug is dealing with here.
And this is a frequent type of encounter that we have where that was going to be sort of my assessment just based on the bare facts as they were presented is we do have these civil engagements where people enter into contracts, arrangements, and they evolve over time. And so I understand Doug's frustrations with how this has played out on his behalf and his concerns. There are a number of times where things are reported to the police that we have no sort of legal mechanism to advance it in terms of laying charges or resolving it. And it does come down to 2 parties who have sometimes financial or contractual arrangements that have to be borne out in another manner. Could be some small claims, could be a civil dispute that's resolved in some other means. But Doug, if you have ongoing concerns, please contact us again or directly. You can reach us, and we'll continue to work through this with you and wish you the best in having it resolved.
Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths with us. Ask the Chief here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. And this hour is your opportunity to have policing questions answered. Got one? Ask it with Ask the Chief as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio. On the first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon. For years, we've been doing this, and as we enter 2025, we continue. The hour between 11 and noon on that first Tuesday of every month is something we call Ask the Chief. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell in studio with us. Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths is here as well. He heads up the Traffic Services Unit, and you can have your policing questions answered. Many of you want to do that. Our phone line's busy today. Andrew is next. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning, gentlemen. Happy New Year to everybody.
To you too.
So, my question is: are police allowed to break the law of driving while pulling somebody over when it's obviously it's not a rush? You can see the car going away. You can wait to turn around. And doing it unmarked vehicle. So I didn't know it was a police officer that almost crashed into me.
All right, Andrew, thank you for the question.
Thanks for the call, Andrew. And the short answer is yes. In the course of the Highway Traffic Act says in the course of our duties, we are permitted to do things like exceed the speed limit or go through red lights if under certain circumstances, if our lights and sirens are activated in that sort of situation. So we are given exemptions under the Highway Traffic Act to conduct police duties. However, it doesn't exclude us from operating that vehicle in a safe manner. So if you came upon a situation where an officer had to do a U-turn or had to do a quick turn in order to catch up to a violator, and that was done unsafely, and there was a collision or there was some sort of interaction with your vehicle and our vehicle that caused damage or whatever, we are held accountable. So we do have those exemptions. We do get that right or that privilege under the law in order to conduct enforcement activities, but we also have to ensure as a balance that we're doing it safely and not endangering others while we're doing it.
And just, Andrew, one more thing to add to that is, if anyone has any concerns about the conduct of our officers individually or as a service, we welcome complaints to be registered, and there's two ways you can do it. You can report directly to, say, the Waterloo Regional Police Service, but there's also an independent agency, and the name has changed in the past year, called the Law Enforcement Complaint Agency. LECA is the new acronym, and anybody with concerns about police conduct or service can file a complaint either way, and we find that's typically an effective way to have concerns addressed, and there's so many ways that can be resolved.
Excellent information again. And Scott, I know that these decisions are being made in the moment. If an officer decides that they have to engage in pursuit, do something that they are exempted from under the Highway Traffic Act, etc. But what are the thresholds? What sorts of training goes into this before that decision is made?
So, during the course of recruit training and ongoing training with our officers, we're looking at conducting safe traffic stops, which is, kind of the basics of doing things. And we also have training on suspect apprehension pursuits, which is when a person chooses not to stop for a vehicle. Not necessarily this is the case for that, but a situation where someone is actively trying to flee the police, as well as, we have ongoing driver training. And so we're always addressing and our cars have in-car video, and we have body cam as well. So it's something that, we're able to review situations and to look at driver behavior if there is a complaint, such as the one we received from Andrew here. And if there is behavior that needs addressing, we can always prescribe remedial training as well.
All right. Andrew, thanks for the question, getting us on that path to conversation. Andre, you are next. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike and officers. Well, you can put your feet up because I already have the answer on this one, I think. About this cash and grab, especially during the holidays for the jewelry store in the mall. There's been a lot of people calling in and on different shows. The reason why I'm talking about it is, just like other callers, I have children, and a mall is a place for kids, and your job is to serve and protect. Now, and what was said is your cost is too expensive, and I respect that for a mall, right? Something had to happen. Now, security, from what I heard, they're not allowed to do nothing. From what I heard, they were on their phone, and people were laughing. I was like, what the heck? So the reason why I said put your feet up is, how come, like in corner store, it says $50 or less? Now, this is a big jewelry store that has a lot of valuables, and this is predictable, right? Especially during the holidays. So,
okay, Andre, I get where you're coming from on that, and it's funny. Andre's on the ball with the news, because I had this on my list to talk to you today about, Mark, as well. So, how are we dealing with what has really been a rash of these robberies?
It is, and Andre, thanks for your question and your concerns, and they're shared with us. So, I'll hit this from a couple directions. Is robberies are amongst our top concerns in the region. In terms of our crime suppression. So that's how we're focusing our efforts on, as I've mentioned before, prolific offenders, prolific offenses. And so last year, 2023, we had 280 robberies. And then the year before, in 2024, we had 267. And they're divided between person-on-person robberies. And then in 2024, we had 112 commercial robberies, convenience stores, jewelry stores, and there were 9 jewelry store robberies in 2024. So what he's hitting on in terms of these he's absolutely right. Malls should be a place, everywhere should be a place where people are free to go to feel safe and to conduct business, and certainly to shop free of their concerns about violence. The jewelry store robberies, we had one on December 16th in the Cambridge Centre Mall, and then 2 days later, the Conestoga Mall. And we were able to apprehend and arrest one of the individuals from the group who smashed the cases and fled from the Conestoga Mall. And we continue to meet with the mall leadership, the mall security, the jewelry store staff and owners to provide as much support, education, and planning for how we are dealing with these. We have a part of this, and I can tell you jewelry stores are vulnerable to this type of targeting. And what I can say is, this is an evolution as well. We have seen that pharmacies have adapted to those time delay safes. You don't hear bank robberies as much as you did in the past because of just moving to more digital currency and protection there. But jewelry stores are one of those places where people can find very quickly things they can turn into cash. And they can melt it down, they can trade it. And cell phones, similarly, they have a marketplace as well. So I can tell you, Andre, we are coordinated. We have a dedicated robbery team that is duly focused on this. And I can tell you, you'll see next week we'll be unveiling our crime suppression efforts and our strategies for 2024 or 2025 and beyond. And your concerns are ours. And I'll just say this. I had a loved one in the Conestoga Mall when that last one took place. So we are all humans. We understand the impact in the lives that are affected as victims, witnesses, and just the general public. So this is amongst our top concerns.
Andre, great question. Staying up with the news cycle for sure. Let's go next to Mary. Mary, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Anyway, can you hear me?
We sure can.
Oh, well, it would be the traffic guy. I had an accident at a four-way stop. So obviously there wasn't a high speed involved because people have to stop. But for some reason or another, this other person thought they had the go, and I went and I hit them, which is sad. But, of course, it was about 4 o'clock on a Friday afternoon. Now, there would be, with cars today and all the sensors and all that, it doesn't take much to add up well over 5,000, correct?
Absolutely, Barry.
Yeah,
yes, you're very correct.
So the lady called the police and that, and she was told that if there's no injury, you don't come out. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mary. So for property damage only crashes, we would assist you with a tow truck if you needed one, but we would direct you to our police reporting center to make that report.
Oh, okay. So I didn't realize. I thought it was if it was over a certain amount that you would have to come out. But as we were told, so that is correct. If there's no injury to either party, you just go to your collision center or whatever it is.
That's right.
Is that correct? Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. And the other thing, and this is my third time mentioning, I'm on Stoke Drive. Lennox comes in to Stoke, and I'm on my exercise bike, and the cars coming from Lennox into Stoke.
They don't stop at the stop sign. I knew you were going to say that, Mary.
No, but some of them go zooming through, and I'm so shocked that nobody's got hit or something hasn't happened.
All right.
It's not like a rolling through; it's like barreling through it.
Mary,
Thanks, Mary.
I'll take that information back to my unit, and I'll liaise with our traffic complaint sergeant, and we will. We'll have somebody out there to take a look at that.
It's funny. Mary had a collision at a four-way stop. There's one of those near my house, and I often see people not stop at the four-way, which, again, this is one of those things that happens in neighborhoods clear around the region, and I'm sure keeps you and the traffic services unit very busy, Scott.
Absolutely, and we are very focused on public input, on public complaints. We want to hear from the public. Our website allows you to make a driving complaint, so a complaint about ongoing traffic issues. We want to hear about them. We want to hear them out there because we want to be in the places that these things are happening. So thank you, Mary, for the call.
All right, Mary, thank you for yours, and we'll get to more calls as we continue Ask the Chief right here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. On the first Tuesday of every month, from 11 until noon, we are joined by police leaders so you can have your policing questions answered. Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell is with us, and the traffic guy, Scott Griffiths, is a staff sergeant who leads the traffic services unit, and they will answer your policing questions, be they on the road or rash of jewelry store robberies that Andre brought up, whatever it happens to be. Back to the phones we go. Zoltan, good morning.
Hey, good morning to you, and welcome back, Mike.
Thank you.
Look, gentlemen, I don't know if you're old enough to know, but many years ago, there used to be a certain number of lumens you can have on a low beam, and a certain number of lumens you can have on the high beam, and also it was a directional item, so it wouldn't go into everybody's face. More and more, I have come across people in town who have their high beams on, and I have flashed my beams to them, and they do nothing but keep going. Yet I've seen other cars, same make, same headlights configuration, and they only have 2 headlights instead of 4 headlights on. It is very distracting, especially with people with glasses, to have this happen, and it could be dangerous. Please comment on that, and thank you very much. And again, welcome back, Mike. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Zoltan. Nice to hear from you. I think we hear about this an awful lot, Scott.
We do, and thank you for the call, Zoltan. And you are correct. I am old enough to remember that in the Highway Traffic Act, and it's actually still in there, but you're challenging my knowledge of it because the maximum amount of lumens and the brightness levels are in the regulations. But what I'll say to you is that much unlike the past, a lot of new vehicles have automatic high beam systems. They have other means to turn off and turn on the headlight systems. And frankly, like we encounter the same thing as in our duties. We're finding people driving with headlights. We have people approaching our ride programs with high beams on, and we're asking them to turn them off. And a lot of people are genuinely just not aware that they're on or not aware of how they became on. In some of these situations, if you flick the stock, it puts it on an automatic mode where it's high beams immediately until it senses a vehicle oncoming, and it'll reduce them. So sometimes that's the problem that we're facing, and sometimes it's just lack of understanding of the use of their lights. So again, it is an issue. We can address that with enforcement if we encounter it. However, under most circumstances, we're just educating people as to how to properly use those.
We need a universal signal for your tail lights are not illuminated. Those are the drivers, I call them phantom vehicles out there, that make me nuts. Mm-hmm. And there's no way, because you flash your high beams if somebody's got their high beams on. At least you used to. It doesn't work as well as it used to. But I don't know what to do for vehicles like that.
Well, daylight driving lights that were installed years and years ago as a requirement for manufacturer have sort of lulled people. So some people leave their residence or leave a store or leave wherever they're leaving, and only the daytime running lights are on, and they're sufficient for their use, so they don't realize that they haven't put their full lighting system on. A lot of times we're encountering people like that as well. So
for sure. All right, the more technology, the less we do for ourselves these days. That's for sure. Let's go next to Steve. Steve, you're on Ask the Chief this morning.
Right on. Thanks very much. Okay, so I do a lot of driving for work, and our company is, keeping an eye on us with the GPS sort of thing electronically, which is cool, and I'm trying my best to do the rules and all this. But I was stopped a few years ago and got a warning for running a red light, and I can't say how many red lights I've seen run out there. You probably hear this all the time. I don't know. However, is there a program where the police set up where they can, watch for this and then, summons tickets for people that are running them, because they're all over the place. They can set up virtually anywhere and sort of put a clamp on that, because it's huge. The running of the reds is huge. I watch it every day.
All right, Steve, thanks for the call and the question.
Steve, thanks for the call again. We encourage everyone, and I know you said it could be anywhere, but for us, we really encourage you to report it to us, to go online to our website and report it, or to call in and make a report on over the phone with us about the concern about some specific locations, because we really need to coordinate. We obviously have finite resources. We want to address, we have intersections in this region with red light cameras, but then we also have our enforcement duties. So we want to be able to focus on places that are the most effective and the most that address the concerns that our residents have here. So please let us know where they are. We'll add that to our list of locations that we're conducting enforcement at, and when we conduct our regular proactive work, we'll try to address that, because there are a lot of intersections, and intersection-related collisions are very prominent, so we obviously want those to be addressed.
Yeah, wait the extra 30 seconds. Stop. I'm one of the worst amber gamblers, yes. Ask my beloved, she'll tell you. And I'm working on it, and I slow down often, because it's not worth it. All right, we're going to squeeze in one more. Jonathan, we're getting short on time, but I wanted you to get your chance to ask a question.
Okay, thanks, guys. Thanks for the work you guys do, and I just want to ask, I know someone who's reported a crime and talked to police in different methods, I guess, and they haven't received an update in any form of, like, the timeline of or what's going on with the investigation and stuff like that. So I'm just wondering how that process works for you guys, and they've also been given email addresses and have reached out but never got responses. So I'm just wondering, or maybe there's a good reason for that, but I'm just wondering how that all works. So thanks.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for the question and concern. And I mean, this does not meet our expectations that communication should be flowing. And we understand there's times where there's lags in investigations being resolved or updates coming. And it's disappointing to hear that the individuals have not heard back. And I mentioned about Complaint Star service before. Our officers are certainly busy. Many of them have incredibly high caseloads. But we have a common expectation that people do hear back when they reach out, especially for ongoing investigations. So I do encourage whoever to reach out to us, and if they're not getting the response that they are seeking, that to elevate that to a supervisor, and we'll be happy to arrange a follow-up. So that's the best I can provide, just in a general context. And I can tell you that the number of investigations that were per cases per officer are significant, for our officers, but everyone's entitled to understand where things stand in terms of a criminal process on our end or even the criminal justice system when things go to court and so on.
All right. Jonathan, thanks for the call and the question. And just like that, we are fresh out of time. I don't know where the time goes, but always a lot of questions for the both of you. And thanks for making yourselves available on a monthly basis to join us here on the show.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it.
Regional Police Chief Mark Crowell, Staff Sergeant Scott Griffiths, they join us on the first Tuesday of every month from 11 until noon here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The police have left the building for another month. They'll be back first Tuesday of February. That's a once-a-month feature from 11 until noon. But a daily feature from noon until 1 is your opportunity to sound off. The 12 o'clock Talkback Hour where you get to start the conversation. Tell us what is going on in your neighborhood. If it's important to you, it's important to us. The 12 o'clock Talkback Hour begins right after this update from the 570 News Center. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
I was boasting earlier today about my prognostication abilities. Last show before the Christmas break, we shared our predictions for the year ahead, and my top three, I feel as though are looking really good. We will have an early provincial election, said I. I think that what the Prime Minister did yesterday, proroguing Parliament federally, will encourage Ontario Premier Doug Ford to call the election before federal Parliament sits again. So I feel pretty good about that. I also predicted that more than one municipal councillor would take a leave from their municipal council post to run in the provincial election. One councillor has done that already. Colleen James from Regional Council is going to run for the Liberals in the next provincial election. And I pointed out that Justin Trudeau would resign as Liberal leader. But no sooner was I finished crowing about myself than I received this email from one of our Friday 4 roundtable guests. We do the Friday 4 every Friday from 11 until noon, recapping the week's big stories. And I'd forgotten that he said this. But now that he's reminded me, I remember it, and I was scoffing at the time. But Tom Galloway, when he was on our show, predicted that neither Joe Biden nor Justin Trudeau would lead their party in the next elections. And I remember at the time scoffing, thinking that Justin Trudeau's ego was far too big for him to step away. Well, here we are. And my prediction just before Christmas was a lot easier because Trudeau was in deeper and deeper doo-doo by that time. But yes, Tom, many months ago, predicted that neither Joe Biden nor Justin Trudeau would lead their parties into the next election. So good job by you, Tom. And that's just another reason that you should listen to our Friday 4 Roundtable every week. I also started the show today by talking about a disturbing trend that I have noticed in recent times. It's probably a couple of years old now, and I'm growing increasingly concerned by it. And I hope that it's a trend we can reverse. And this trend is public institutions not providing information to the public. I don't think there is enough transparency. And of course, our last hour goes completely against that because once a month, police leaders sit here in this studio and take calls from you. I think that is a tremendous level of accessibility, accountability, and transparency. But we don't get a lot of it. Primarily, I would say, from our school boards. We don't get a ton from academic institutions these days. I'm not sure that healthcare is perfect at it. But nonetheless, I'm most frustrated by school boards and the inability to even reach trustees these days. I shared the story earlier today of a time as a younger reporter with this very radio station that I would pick up the phone on a Sunday afternoon because it was my job, to call a school board trustee and talk about something coming up on the school board agenda the following night. You just can't do that anymore. Everything gets filtered through the board chair, and even then, you're lucky to get a response. Most of the time, we're lucky enough just to get a statement on behalf of the board or from a staff person at the school board. And that doesn't cut it. You need to explain the reasons you're making the decision. We don't have to like those reasons, but they need to be explained. That's what public institutions are all about. And so I bring that back up because as I reflect on it, I think it should be pointed out that I think our regional councils here, or our municipal councils in the regional council and the other 7 municipal councils, I think they do a terrific job. They still are accessible. I can call them any time of day, any day of the week, and get responses. That should be the standard, I think, to which other public institutions are held. I think, personally, our councils are doing a terrific job. Opposition, provincial and federal politicians are usually pretty good. Those who are sitting are less good. But municipally, our councils do a great job across the board. And I hope that is the standard to which other public institutions aspire in 2025. Let's get to your Talkback Hour. Started off with a call from my buddy Grant. Grant, Happy New Year.
Yeah, likewise.
Thank you.
Would you think of having a segment maybe once a month on good stories of people that had diabetes, or have someone, a professional, on to help people understand that diabetes is really nothing to kind of mess around with?
I think that's a really good point. I haven't thought of anything for diabetes specifically, Grant, but I have toyed with the idea of a regular health-related segment, yes.
Yeah, because I had a friend that was diagnosed several years ago, and I kept on telling him, you can't be eating this stuff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
He was eating this stuff, and he lost his battle with it, and that's why I thought, you know what, and maybe it would help out other people too.
Yeah.
And I keep on going back to, well, if I saw what was on his plate, maybe I should just throw it out.
Well, I get where you're coming from with that, and obviously we'll let people make those decisions for themselves, however harmful, and hopefully we can intervene in a kind, gentle way. But to your point, generally, I have toyed with, and I will now continue to toy with the idea of a regular segment on healthy habits and our health overall and what we can do to stay well. It's a good idea. Mark, good afternoon. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Hi, Mike, and Happy New Year.
And to you, my friend.
Thank you. I didn't call yesterday because it was all Trudeau talk.
Well, what? It was the biggest story in the world, Mark.
I know, that kind of bored me, though.
Okay.
It just went on and on and on. Anyway, a couple things, Mike. I really enjoyed the interview on Sunday with Mikey Moore.
How about that, eh? Mike Moore joined our Rangers broadcast on Sunday afternoon.
That was really cool. Listen. And I didn't realize he played in the NHL for 9 games.
Sure did. Got his cup of coffee.
What team, Mike?
New Jersey.
New Jersey?
Yeah.
Okay. It was a very cool interview. And secondly, Mike, I like your new segment you came up with, the music thingy.
I'm glad you did. I got a couple of emails right after the first one of those yesterday. Music History Mondays is now a thing on Monday mornings at 11 o'clock.
Yeah, good, great idea, Mike, and I'll be listening as I always do.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks very much. Really appreciate it, buddy.
Okay, Mike.
All right, take care. Mike Moore, former Kitchener Ranger, in his final 2 seasons with the Rangers, had 372 and then 384 penalty minutes. But the guy is so much more than someone who wasn't shy of physical play when he played for the Kitchener Rangers. Great guy all around. And if you missed it, on our hockey broadcast on Sunday from Guelph. All of the intermission interviews that we do get archived and posted online in podcast form. I strongly encourage you to check it out. We've got the Rangers Talk podcast, which is our post-game show after every home game when we take calls, et cetera, et cetera. It gets posted under the same thing with Rangers Talk. You can look it up wherever you get your podcasts. Same for this show, a podcast feed if you miss it live or you want to go back and hear it again because you liked it so gosh darn much, please consider doing that. Strongly recommend the Seeker app, Seekr. You will not go wrong, and all of our stuff is archived right there for you. Listen to Mike Moore, listen to the Talkback Hour, whatever it is you want, you're going to find it using the Seeker app. This is your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. It's the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The Talkback Hour means it's your turn to do just that. Talk. 519-570-2545. Star 570. 1-800-570-5715. Paul, good afternoon.
How you doing again?
Good.
3 today, is it?
No, it's only 2.
Is it only 2? Yeah, that's right. I was going to call earlier, but I didn't.
Okay.
Listen. We all know that there's going to be a federal election coming up shortly, and there's a strong possibility there could be a provincial election coming soon. A question for you. Now, I think we need good people to run as candidates in these elections.
Amen.
But, now here's a big but.
Uh-oh.
If somebody is holding a position, elected or otherwise, where they're collecting their wages in some form of taxpayer dollars funded by the taxpayers, your thoughts, should they be forced to resign that position?
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
So, you see a lot of them, they say, well, I'm going to take a leave of absence and test the waters, so to speak. And then they expect to go back into their other position afterwards. My opinion, if anybody is going to run for an elected position and they are currently collecting anything from taxpayers in the way, for wages, whether it's a school board or a teacher or a municipal politician, they should not be able to maintain that position once they announce that they are running for whatever elected position, because they will go ahead and they will use that opportunity to promote themselves.
Yeah, you know what, Paul? I'm with you on that, and I'm glad you brought it up. I'm going to be writing about this in the not too distant future because it's been on my mind. I used to be a lot stricter or more vocal about even jumping from one level of politics to the next, and that's what we're going to see. I think there will be at least one more municipal councillor who throws their hat into the ring provincially. And the municipal term is not over yet. But things don't always align that way. So whatever. Although I will also remind you, I still found it incredibly galling that after not even 6 months on the job, Aislinn Clancy bolted from Kitchener Council to run provincially. My goodness gracious. By the way, Aislinn's going to be on the show tomorrow. We can still talk. We can disagree, and I was in vehement disagreement with her decision then. Barely had started city counciling and then ran for provincial politics. But to Paul's point, I don't think it should be a leave of absence. I think it should be resignation, and then if you want to go back to municipal politics, you have to win a by-election. And I know cost. I know what you're thinking, but I think it's the only way because it should be up to voters to decide then if they want you back, in my opinion. Anyway, great point, Paul. Afif, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Okay. So, you know how, Trump said that, Canada should be a 51st state?
Oh, I've heard it a few times. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So my uncle had something to say about that. He's like, why don't we become a 51st state? We get free American citizenship.
No, thank you. It's not worth it. Why would you want that?
I don't know. I don't want to be stuck under Trump.
Well, there you go. So there's one of the reasons you wouldn't want that. I want to give a shout out to Donna. Man, Donna knows we should get Donna to host the show because she sends an email to Mike at 570news.com following Grant's call about, have you ever thought of doing a show about diabetes? And Donna emails to say, our local YMCA is offering a free upcoming virtual class on diabetes, whether you have it, might have it, or don't want it and want more information regarding it. The class is running an hour a week for 16 weeks. It starts on January the 16th. And there you go. So, you know what? I might just get the person in charge of the program on the show too. But Grant, check it out at the YMCA. You can take advantage of that free virtual class for the next 16 weeks, starting on January the 16th. Robbie English, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I missed you on Friday. There was a lot of people calling in. I can't work out why, but probably something to do with the fisticuffs at the end of an amazing game.
That was kind of fun on Friday night.
Oh, man. You say it's the new rivalry? Then great. Bring them on.
All right.
I like rivalry.
I like a little bit of shenanigans, too.
Yeah, like more 100% old time. Unfortunately, they took the foil away, but that's another subject. But what a great game on Friday. We are playing out of our skins. Parsons deserves to be goalkeeper of the year. I don't know about goalkeeper of the week. If he doesn't win some sort of accolades at the end of this season, I don't know what's going on. But, yeah, great. And then we actually, from my buddy Frank and I, went to the Guelph game on Sunday as well.
Amazing.
And, it looks like the Guelph guys have decided that Erie can have the rivalry. It was quite a good game, an enjoyable game as well, and another win. So keep going, keep swinging. The guys are playing well. I did panic on Sunday a little bit when Hedrick didn't want to get up, and that was he's my pick for this season. Last season was Elenath, and look what happened with him. This season it's Hedrick. So let's keep the little guy healthy and protect his butt, because he's going to be a player to build a team around over the next 2 or 3 seasons.
All right, Robbie, great to hear from you on the show today. Robbie is one of our regular callers to Rangers Talk after Kitchener Rangers home games. And yes, Evan Hedrick is not the biggest guy. It's obvious for all to see, and it seems as though other players in the OHL want to try to take advantage of that fact. But the kid's nails. He's tough. He pops back up, but he did take a pretty good beating on Sunday in Guelph. And yes, Jackson Parsons, Kitchener Rangers goaltender, for the 4th time this season, has been named goaltender of the week. And all I can say to that is try harder, Pars. Try harder, would you? Come on. Only 4 times? Only 4 times you've been the goaltender of the week. Okay, then. It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. You've got opinions, share them, and it certainly seems like you want to do that. Very busy phone lines today. Hang in there with me. An update from the 570 News Center, and then right back to those busy phone lines. We'll keep taking your calls on this 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. We do it every day from noon until 1 right here on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio. Busy show for busy people. That's how the Talkback Hour works. Let's get right back to your calls, because if it's important to you, it's important to us. Tom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, sir.
First, I just heard Mr. Ford there cracking a joke, we'll buy Alaska back. I don't know if he remembers that, but we once owned Alaska, so we're going to buy the Alaska back, and we're going to buy the 407 back. I'm glad he's got lots of money. Team Canada, I guess yesterday took up a lot of time with Mr. Trudeau's situation, but Team Canada's lost in the tournament there, and a lot of people had their arms up in the air again, type of thing. But hockey's changed. They've changed the game of hockey and how it's coached, and the cost of hockey today, and the fundamentals of the game really aren't being taught anymore, and the expense that it costs for parents to put their kids into any sport have really increased more and more each time, and we've lost the focus that it's a game, and there are life-building skills in this game of hockey or any sport, and that. But the cost of a hockey stick for a kid today is just, it's more than a pair of skates used to, go along that way and registration and that. And what is really more important that we're taking away stuff that we used to take for granted, I guess myself included, that playing a simple game of hockey or baseball, that you don't see many kids play pickup baseball anymore after school. There's nobody on the streets playing ball hockey or in the schoolyards anymore because of some legislation that won't allow kids to do stuff like that. So where you learned your skills and your fundamentals was really being taught by a coach per se. You learned by playing against each other and learned how to do certain things, and that's how you improved in that.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from, Tom, and we could do a full debrief on the state of the game. It is expensive. Sticks are incredibly expensive compared to when we were kids, but not as expensive as skates. But it does keep some families out of the game because it's expensive to put your kids in it. You're right. I will say this, though. When it comes to hockey, as much as other nations have caught up and the game is taught and coached differently, I still believe that we have the best talent in the world. We have the most skilled players, and we've got to figure out a way to use them better in tournaments like the World Juniors, because I was one of those fans with their arms in the air saying, what the HE double hockey sticks happened to our boys at that tournament. We should have shown better. We've got the skill to do it. We just have to assemble the right team next time, in my opinion. Danny, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Yeah, how are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Not bad.
Good.
I've talked to you before about this, and I don't understand why we cannot get some more OHA hockey on your station.
All right.
We can't hear a thing about any other team. We can't get a score from your station. You know, like even on Friday morning, like do a little section of the OHL hockey
on Friday morning. So as part of,
I'm not saying Friday morning,
okay,
but any morning. But Friday would be nice because at the end of the year or the end of the week, and you know what's going on, right?
All right. So if you had,
we can't get anything from any scores on your station, no.
Yeah. So if you had
all we get is your repats or the afternoon guy like all night long.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you get a lot of me, don't you, Danny? I'm sorry about that, brother.
Yeah, I know. I just, I know you've tried to work on it. I just can't see how I can get. I know you're busy on your station, but I just like to see more of it. Even once a week or something to find out what's going on and who's in first and like the other divisions, and you don't get any of that anymore.
All right, I get you, Danny. Listen, I'll tell you what, because there is so much good hockey being played in this community. There are so many great sports, not just the junior B level with our Siskins and our Dutchies and our Cyclones and our Redhawks, and it just goes on and on, our Centennials. I could just keep going on and on about how much, and then the universities. And I would love to share all of it. I would love to be able to do all of it, but we are a human resource thin industry these days, and it's tough. It's tough, but I hear you, and I love it, and I want to celebrate these athletes as well. I'll give some thought to how I might be able to incorporate something into this show. But we also have to remember, Danny, and this is the other part of it. It's a limited audience, right? So if I go into even a 5-minute recap of the weekend sports, so you can get all of the hockey and who's in first place in all of the leagues, I don't want other people to tune out because they don't. It's tough. It's a balance. I'm just thinking out loud right here as we go through it. But I hear you. I appreciate your passion for the local sports community, and we'll see what we can do. Kyle, good afternoon. You're on the Talkback Hour.
Happy New Quarter. I loved your interview with, oh my gosh, I forgot his name, but it was at 9:30.
Peter Wollstonecroft. What a beauty that guy is.
He really interesting. I got a couple of questions. I'll let you go. First of all, what's your opinion on your personal opinion on the Bloc Québécois pretty much becoming the official opposition? And I know I wouldn't say nationalists because they are Quebec, so I would say they're more provincialist. But are they conservative? Are they liberal? I don't know how to judge them on, as the NDP is, they're kind of like that left wing, or they say they're for the working class, and the Liberals, they're really left leaning conservatives or center right to right. What would you say the Bloc Québécois is, and what are the advantages of having a Bloc Québécois as a opposition compared to, like, let's say the NDP, who lies all the time and now is throwing Liberals under the bus, and they voted every 2 seconds with the Liberals and stuff. So thanks, Mike. I appreciate it, and have a great day, my friend.
I appreciate the NDP lies all the time. They should put that on their party slogan for the next election. We lie all the time. They don't lie all the time. But I understand your frustration. What would I say about the political leaning of the Bloc Québécois? Outside of the fact that they lean nowhere beyond their own borders, I would probably describe them, at least when you consider provincially, as right of center politically. But here's the thing with the Bloc Québécois potentially forming the next official opposition, which, if you're reading the tea leaves, i.e. the polls, and take polls for what they're worth, the only poll that matters is the exit poll on Election Day, but things are shaping up that way, right? Like, the left is kind of done, both Liberal and NDP. The Conservatives are way ahead, and the numbers tell us that the Bloc is almost likely to form the official opposition in the next federal parliament. And the problem with that is for any Canadian not in Quebec, because as Peter Wollstonecroft described it this morning, and I don't think he's wrong in so doing, the Bloc Québécois is a separatist party, not a nationalist party, but a separatist party. They are all about Quebec. So I don't know how anybody in British Columbia or anybody in Newfoundland, Labrador, or anybody in Ontario, frankly, benefits from a Quebec-focused political party in official opposition federally. But Yves-François Blanchet, the leader, has assured us there's nothing to be afraid of should the Bloc form the official opposition in the next federal parliament. We shall see. It'll be an experience for all of us, if that's the way it turns out. This is the Mike Farwell Show, your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 570 News Radio. The Talkback Hour is your chance to start the conversation. If it's important to you, we want to hear about it here on the show. Let's get right back to the phones. Philip, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. My world's not right on two accounts. One is when I try to phone you on star 570, it doesn't work.
Oh, I think, but you're trying from that Stratford place.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
But more importantly...
Yes, sir.
I don't see your ugly mug anymore from 10 a.m. to noon on Rogers 20 TV.
That's right.
I got it. Hiding some holiday girth or a pimple or something, or what?
Actually, don't even get me started on all the pimples. But, and that's the truth. I finally got my wish, and I got rid of those TV people and said, leave me alone to do my radio show. Would you mind? Because it's a radio show.
Oh, okay.
No,
yeah, you do have a good face for radio.
I certainly do, and it's getting better all the time. The truth of it all is Rogers TV is still on a Christmas hiatus. They will be back on Monday, the 13th. And for your viewing pleasure, one of the reasons the hiatus is a little longer is because they have installed brand new cameras. So you will see even more of this pimple-covered, ugly face starting Monday. We'll be back on TV. And these cameras scare the bejeepers out of me because they're so slick and they're so high definition.
Yes, yes. Do you have a new tattoo that I can look forward to?
It only depends on how hot it gets in here. It's not a new tattoo, but if I've got to strip down, buddy, you're going to have to see it no matter what.
Okay.
Okay. You're welcome. Bye. Thanks for your interest in everything that we do on this show. We'll be back on Rogers TV in brand new 4K, high definition. You don't want to see my face that well, color, on Monday morning at 10. 10 till noon every day, Rogers TV. 9 till 1 here on your radio station. Patty, you're on the Talkback Hour.
Oh, hi. Just a variety of things going on and having my washing machine broke, but that's irrelevant.
You want me to come and fix it? I'm like the Maytag repairman, Patty.
Oh, gosh, I would be one. No, it's already gone out to a scrap metal guy.
All right, well, you took care of it then, didn't you?
I missed I'm still the Patty from your turkey drop T-shirt and all that. But anyway, I miss talking about when the professor was there this morning talking about these kids that don't get active or doing much stuff. I have, and I have kids that are still in elementary, but I also have kids that have gone through high school and into, and on the side, yes, they've got very, very active, but it's like you get into high school, how many credits do you need for just being active, like a phys ed program or something? And I don't know. I lose touch because I'm not really there, but maybe 1 credit? I don't know. And if they only, and you're right, if they don't really have the, want to do it, they're not going to do it. They'll get that 1 credit and they'll be over and done with and move on with whatever else they want to take. So it's just, I didn't hear them from the very beginning, but I just thought, man, I'm very fortunate that most of my kids and grandkids were quite athletic, but more outside of school than what was being offered there. So that was that. And then I also wanted to mention, yes, I was a paper girl. I delivered newspapers with my wagon.
Not a girl. I delivered them with my wagon, too.
Yeah, and that was down in the Toronto area, the Toronto Star. I think it wasn't the Telegram. Well, I'm not old, but it was fun. It was a good way. Got a little bit of money, started learning how to save money. So that was one thing. Okay, I'll be really quick because I'm having the washing machine delivered as we speak. The snow on the top of the cars. Okay, I am short, but I can still use a broom or something to get it off. I was on the 401 heading towards Toronto area last week, and I couldn't tell you how many cars, with like 8 to 10 inches of snow flying off the tops of their cars. It was insane, and I should have started copying down license plate numbers.
All right, Patty.
Okay, one more thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't realize hockey sticks, are so expensive. I have a grandson into it, and he says, no, you don't get them. I won't mention the name of the store, but I had no idea how much they were. And like the guy said, maybe sometimes more than what the skates are. Okay, so that's probably it. Enjoy your day. I love listening to you, and it's always a bonus. A pleasure when I have the chance.
Thanks, Patty. I love listening to you, too. All those different ideas. I'm just going to say this on the snow-covered vehicles. You know how I feel about it generally, but here's another point I'll add to it. If you can't clean the roof of your vehicle is too big. You don't need a vehicle that big. Big vehicles make me a little bit nutty. They really do. So that's on you. If you can't clean the roof, then the vehicle's too big. End of story. I'm glad that Patty mentioned when she talked about being a newspaper carrier, and it was in Toronto, the Toronto Star, not the Toronto Telegram, even though I'm that old, she says. I don't know what it is about newspapers, but I remember when I told my buddies about the Belleville Intelligencer, which was one of the oldest newspapers in Canada, and they didn't believe me that was a real name of a newspaper. We could go through all of them if you like. The Kingston Whig Standard, the old Kitchener Post that used to be here, the Cambridge Reporter. I don't know why I love them so much, but I do. We should go over old newspaper names. That'd be a fun show sometime, eh? All right, stop yawning. Your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour continues. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Final minutes of the show before we send you to Snow. Rob Snow, now you know, coming up 1 until 3. Let's get right back to our phone lines. Jim, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. It's me again. And guess what I want to talk about?
You want to talk about spousal separation and long-term care?
No. None of those things.
Okay.
I want to talk about the Kitchener Rangers.
Of course you do.
That's right. We were at the 3 games on the weekend, and wow, every game was so exciting, and it was just amazing how those Rangers came back and won every one of those games.
So Brantford, then at Kitchener, and then in Guelph, you got to all 3.
That's right.
Attaboy, Jim. 3. Good job.
Yeah. Yeah, we just love going to the Ranger games. What a team this year. They are just so they work their butts off. That's all I can say.
Absolutely, Jim. You're so right about that. And I should have noticed my voices, one Jim to another. That's hockey Jim right there. And glad to hear from you. Glad to hear that you're supporting our Kitchener Rangers. Jay, good afternoon.
Just want to wish you condolences in advance for Sunday.
Settle down.
Oh, I didn't say what I was thinking.
Well, listen. Listen here. You want me to hang up the phone? I'll hang up the phone.
No.
Well, why are you doing that to me then?
Well, I as a Leaf fan, we know each other's pain, right?
Listen.
Yeah.
You got anything better to bring, or I'm 3, 2, 1. I'm going to give. You got till count of 3.
We got
one.
The Blue Jays for 2025.
All right. Jay is already forecasting the elimination of my Pittsburgh Steelers from the playoffs. Yeah. Jay, you're probably not wrong. 4 straight losses for my Pittsburgh Steelers going into the playoffs. And who do we get in the wild card game? The Baltimore Ravens. Are you kidding me right now? But you know what? This is why you play the games, Jay. This is something for us as Pittsburgh Steelers and as Pittsburgh Steelers fans to get up for. Let's go shock the football world. Or not. I don't know. I don't love our chances either, but that's the way this particular cookie has crumbled. And yes, the NFL playoffs open on the weekend while we are in the middle of a 3-in-3 with the Kitchener Rangers. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You'll hear every game right here. All right, I got to move along. An update from the 570 News Center, and then Now You Know with Rob Snow is coming up. Colin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.